Hello, everyone. Welcome to Non-Canon Files number 44 in the AllYouCanHear podcast. I'll be your host today, Patrick. And today we'll be discussing a very unique movie called Congo from 1995. A little bit of preface before we get started. You see, the boys and I on AYCH, we had definitely been in a monkey state of mind. Just considering, Planet of the Apes movies have been coming out, and we've been very excited and just been consuming those at a rapid pace. So we have monkey on the brain. So I think a good way for us to ease into like this sort of little mini era of the podcast, MonkeyCast as we've been calling it, would be another monkey movie, one that's a bit off the beaten path. And this movie, it definitely is strange. It definitely has a bit of a reputation preceding it as just like a wild, strange, peculiar piece of like 1990s blockbuster fare. Personally, I remember this movie when I was a kid. Like I was in kindergarten seeing the toys on the shelf and definitely the toys set a very different story than what the movie actually is. And the movie itself is already fairly strange. And to me, it's just a movie that deserves to be talked about just for the sheer spectacle of it. So, to get started, like I said, this is Congo from 1995. It's based off a novel from the author of the Jurassic Park series. Basically, it's like Jurassic Park, but what if monkeys? And it's such a strange movie because you definitely get the sense, Jurassic Park already was this massively influential movie. It, changed movies as a whole. And of course, like when something really big comes out, there's always going to be like imitators. So they're very quick to get something else out there. So it's a big adventure movie. They definitely put a lot of money into it. Obviously, I don't think the effects hold up as well as Jurassic Park, but I appreciate the practical nature of the movie. But the movie itself opens with just a chin just bursting through the wilderness. We have... God, my mind is blanked. We have Bruce Campbell as the leader of this expedition to the jungles of Africa to find these very rare, very special diamonds that this shady telecommunications company is after. So they're looking for these diamonds, and he's able to find one just jutting out of the ground, and he plops it in this special device that makes a laser, and ostensibly the laser is to help, the efficiency of telecommunications and like internet and research, but that's all very dubious. It basically just has a laser cannon, and he's just like blowing up stuff in the jungle. And he gets a shout from his fellow journeymen in the jungle, and they find these ruins like underneath this little like watery passage. And naturally, one goes to explore it and doesn't come back. And Bruce Campbell's there, snacking on the Hershey bar when, an eyeball plops onto his shoulder, and he's sort of left screaming as the camera zooms in to his very heavily implied demise. Which brings me to my first strike of the movie. You can't just give us like rugged 1990s Bruce Campbell and then just snatch it away, but I guess it can't be a perfect movie. And this leads to the next portion of the movie, which follows Dylan Walsh, who you might know from Nip Tuck fame. And basically, he's this primatologist. He's basically this like nanny to this very special gorilla named Amy, who they taught sign language. She has a special like glove and backpack that translates her sign language into, automated speech. And this portion is sort of the setup for another like charming part of the movie. If this is something that you're fond of is like the practical gorilla costume suit that Amy is portrayed by. It's very clearly like someone in like a gorilla suit, but has like animatronic like features for the face and arm. You can kind of sort of see the seams of the costume much more easily. And personally, I find it very charming. It's just funny when you have like this giant gorilla character like being doted on by just like a frizzy haired little scientist man. And I'll also say Dylan Walsh is the only person in this movie that's giving it some kind of pathos. Like, everyone else very clearly knows they're in this schlocky B-movie type fare, and they're appropriately hammy and cartoonish and over the top, as we'll see with other characters when they enter. And his whole shtick is that he wants to use Amy, who has sign language and has this new equipment, to go into the jungle to find other gorillas and sort of learn what their thoughts and feelings are, sort of like open a bridge of communication between human and animals. And also, apparently, Amy is homesick for a jungle she remembers when she was a baby. So it's like, oh, we'll just have this gorilla who's only lived in captivity lead us to a very specific place that she remembers with utmost accuracy in a country on the other side of the world, of course. So Dylan Walsh's character and his very nervous assistant, played by Grant Heslov, they charter a flight. Meanwhile, this back at the telecommunications front, Laura Linney's character, who saw Bruce Campbell's character's feed get cut off in the middle of the jungle, she's like, oh, I have to go find him. And I don't know if it's implied that they are married or together, but she's obviously much more concerned about finding him personally than recovering these super rare ultra diamonds that the evil businessman CEO wants her to get. So basically, he gives her like a truckload of money, and it's like, okay, we found out that these monkey guys are going to the jungle, and we're going to like kind of hijack them. It's like, oh, just jump on their plane, bribe them, do what you got to do, get on the plane, go to Africa so you can find these gemstones. And also, while they're at the airport, you see a fantastic character introduced, played by Tim Curry, Herkimer Homolka, who plays like the most cartoonishly German accented character ever. Like, imagine like any cartoon German accent, and you get what Tim Curry is giving you in this movie, and it's incredible. And like, he's very shady, and he's like, oh yes, I think monkeys are just so interesting, aren't they? And like, he kind of has ulterior motives. Like, he has this ring with like an eye inscribed on it, and it's very similar to like the drawings that Amy the gorilla has been making for several days, because like apparently she remembers an eye in this jungle that she grew up in. So he thinks it's a connection to his secret plan. So he hops on board. Laura Linney's character manages to ingratiate herself into the monkey team. So like, all these people hop on a plane and they go to Africa. And just fair warning, if you do decide to watch it, because there's a lot of like genuinely just like funny, goofy shit in the movie. Not a lot of it's not intentionally funny, but it's just so bonkers that you can't help but laugh. But also, during the Africa portions, there's definitely going to be some questionable stuff, just due to, I don't know what it was in the 90s, but there was definitely a big uptick in like jungle adventure, like Africa adventure type fare. And there's like a lot of movies where like X person goes to Africa, or like, oh, there's like some kind of tribal like character that they find, and like does not age well. And there's definitely like some uncomfortable, like, oh, Africa's government's always in turmoil, or like there's like, oh, modern day mystical tribe. Yeah, like there's going to be that. So just heads up, that's going to be a little uncomfy for a little bit. But gratefully, they don't linger on it too much. So when they get to the airport in Africa and like things start exploding and like there's like soldiers running around, they don't linger on it too long. It's okay, we're getting out of here. But when they get to the airport in Africa, they run into probably one of my favorite characters in the movie. And that's Ernie Hudson of Ghostbusters fame as Captain Monroe Kelly. And he's basically like this, like charming, like schmoozy, type of guy who's ostensibly from England. God bless him. Ernie Hudson's basically doing like his impression of Carly Elwes from Princess Brides for 2 hours. And I think it's great. Like it's very suitable for the fare that we're getting. And he has his fingers in a lot of pies. Basically, like he runs guns. He kind of, uses his shadowy connections to make money and to get people what they want and where they want to go. So he's able to convince them to go along with, his brand of adventure and going through Africa. Obviously, like Dylan Walsh is like, I'm just here for the monkey. I want to take our monkey home. And it's like, dude, there's like bigger stuff going on. So you need to like get with the plan. So they hop on his bus and he's able to like finagle their way to the next leg of the journey. And there's a great bit where like and just to keep in mind, throughout the whole movie, the person playing Amy the gorilla in their mechanical gorilla costume is just sort of like monkeying around, very much in character, while, people are talking about like, political upheaval, danger, death, and this actor is just giving full monkey the whole time. It's incredible. Like, Ernie Hudson's like smoking a cigar and the monkey just like takes it out of his mouth and she puts it in her mouth and she's like and this is just an incredible scene where it's like it looks like she's smoking like a fat ass blunt in the movie. It's great. And there's a portion when they're first going to Africa, in order to get the monkey to calm down, they like give her like a martini and she's like literally drinking like a fucking like 2 olive martinis. It's incredible. So they, get out of the parking lot of the airport. They get sort of stopped by other like sort of, African political bodies. And it's not really important. There's just like, basically let you know that there's like political upheaval the further they go into Africa. And it's all very questionable. And eventually through Ernie Hudson's connection, they charter a plane to go deeper into the jungle area. But by doing so, they're like invading like other nation states' airspace. So literally there's like this little tin can plane zipping through the air, and there's like all of a sudden these soldiers start shooting them with rocket launchers. And so they're like, oh, we gotta like beat a hasty like retreat, get maneuvered. So, but then Laura Linney's character, keeps describing herself, oh, I'm just a telecommunications scientist. I'm just here to help recover my friend and his information. And it's like Ernie Hudson's like, yeah, I found out you actually worked with the CIA through like all these other shady connections. So what are you up to really? He's like, I'm just a girl. I don't know what you're talking about. And then when the soldiers start blasting them with rockets, she kicks open the plane door, pops out the emergency flare gun, and just starts shooting the rockets out of the air. That Ernie Hudson's like, I like this chick, so he also gets a flare gun. And there's probably my favorite shot in the movie, that Ernie Hudson and Laura Linney are like next to each other, arms poking out of the airplane, just leaned out with their flare guns. And it's just like, I'm a sucker for any time you stick two people together back to back with guns. Like that's, and they shoot the rockets down. And so they realize, oh, we don't have much time. So they just strap parachutes into every piece of cargo and everyone's stuff. They dope up the monkey. and they all jump out of the planes. And since this is 1995, they actually throw motherfuckers off the plane. Like, there's like a whole skydiving sequence where they throw all the stuff out. They throw Tim Curry out of the plane. They throw, Dylan Walsh out of the plane. Like, Ernie Hudson jumps out of the plane with the monkey onto him, and it's like incredible. The plane explodes in the sky. And so they land in the jungle. They get all put back together, and they start their hike back along the jungle. And the whole time they're just following Amy the gorilla's like hazy infant memory to this exact pinpoint location, like I said. And they just, and I wouldn't say it's like fraught with danger, but it's kind of like peppered with like little bitty, like, here they're on the river, some hippos attack, like some very good, like animatronic hippos. Like, there's definitely like some good like creature effects and sets. Some are definitely more, dated, because this is from 1995, but like I appreciate, there's a lot of practicality to it. And it's not like some movies of the era where they would attempt to use very early CG technology to try to explore things. Thankfully, they didn't do a lot of that here. But most of the effects you'll see are in camera and practical, which I think it helps the movie than it would if it was like some undercooked 90s CG. And then, there's a moment where they discover this long lost tribe, and apparently a guy that originally got snatched up during Bruce Campbell's expedition, he turns up again, and he's all like strung out and scared and scratched up. He dies just due to the exposure to whatever he's seen. And Laura Linney's character is getting distraught. It's like, well, if he's all like stressed and crazy, then what hope to have for Bruce Campbell? And like all of our hopes die with it of seeing rugged 1990s Bruce Campbell again. And so they pick back up, and you would think the movie would kind of lead you to think that Laura Linney is going to fall in love with like the kind of mop-headed Dylan Walsh. But like, honestly, he's kind of like the tertiary character in that trio of Laura Linney. Ernie Hudson's very much like, he's the Han Solo. He's the guy who's forging the trail. Like, he's very entertaining. I remember reading that this role was one of Ernie Hudson's favorite that he's had in his career. I guess because like he's essentially the main character now. Like once he appears in Africa as like, the smuggler guy, he kind of takes over the movie. And then as we're going along, we hear more from Tim Curry's character, who like finally spills the beans that he knows Ernie Hudson's character. They've encountered each other before, and basically his whole shtick, why he sort of inserted himself into this entire expedition, was because he's looking for this lost city called Zinj. And basically it's the rumored location of King Solomon's mines. It's basically just this, legendary place that's just filled with riches, specifically diamonds. The same diamonds that allegedly the telecommunication company that Laura Linney's character like wants for totally legitimate, non-nefarious reasons. And like Ernie Hudson's like, yeah. How many people have died looking for this silly place? How many people have you screwed over looking for this place? He's like, no, I swear I mean it this time. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to set things right. It's like, sure. But, he's doing this in his like hokey, incredible fake German accent. And eventually they come to like kind of a point where the initial telecommunications expedition dropped off, and there's just bodies and debris everywhere. And it's like, okay, I think we're in the right location, because there's just all this, carnage everywhere. So they get into the ruins, and they kind of find like basically retracing the footsteps of the failed expedition. And you sort of see this, big, grand, like ruined temple. It's kind of like it's what you'll see like a lot of the movie posters, like this big sort of face, like a kind of like a very prominent eye, and it's overgrown with brush. And it's when they get inside, they realize it's like has all these hieroglyphics and carvings of monkeys, and basically where the monkey part finally comes in, because like the whole movie, I'm sort of like just like waiting with anticipation when we're going to get to the monkey stuff, because it's a good like hour 15 before we get to the monkey stuff, like the monkeys, like the scary monkeys. Like you have like great stuff with Amy, how like she's snipping at the various members of the team. She's having great monkey moments, and it's like this weirdly, like, I guess intended to be emotional, like, sweet moments with Dylan Walsh, because like like I said, he's the only one that's like pretending like this is a good movie. And there's like a lot of great like background stuff with her. But like I'm here for the crazy monkeys, for the scary monkeys, because like I said at the beginning of the show, I remember this movie coming out as a kid, and it had like an entire toy line. But they were like weirdly gruesome like toys too. Like all the monkeys were very like gnarled and like monstrous. Like there's literally one that had like an empty eye socket with like blood pouring out. And I'm thinking, so this movie has like super intelligent monkeys, and we kind of see them come up against the human expedition. Yes, that there are antagonistic monkeys, gorillas, but they're not super intelligent, because it comes to find out apparently King Solomon, or the people he had set up in the jungle when he found this vein of diamonds in the heart of Africa, like he left a contingency of people behind to train gorillas to guard the mines, and they like specifically chose aggressive gorillas and bred them for their ferocity, and to the point where they became so ferocious, so violent, that they killed all the humans and I guess any other nearby life. So you just have like these super spooky, like hyper aggressive gorillas in the jungle. And eventually they start seeing like spooky stuff in the temples, and it's like, okay, we need to double back and figure this out. So they set up an encampment, and then all the while there's like shadows like zip-a-zopping around in the woods and the leaves. And so Laura Linney, who's like almost completely dropped her scientist facade, like, oh yeah, she's like some kind of paramilitary, like lady. So she has like drone machine gun turrets, like laser fences, like ultraviolet lights. It looks like a weird jungle rave in front of a temple. But then also when the spooky monkeys attack, like they start just lighting up the jungle. Like, everybody's like strapped to the teeth. Like Ernie Hudson's got like a shotgun and like an LMG, and they're just like shooting all these monkeys in the jungle. And there's like these, and they're all like gnarled and gross and mutated looking. I guess after like hundreds of years of like ferocious inbreeding, I guess. I mean, I guess is it really any different from the people who have like those super mutated inbred bulldogs? It's very, very much the same thing. Where's the B movie of those super inbred bulldogs that they drop like it's a rap album? Where is that? But anyhow, after a night of just like shooting shadows in the jungle and getting their turrets knocked over, they wake up and they say, okay, I guess we're gonna try to look for the diamonds one last time. So they venture further in, and they get trapped, obviously, because they set up some mechanism. And then Tim Curry's like, no, we got to keep going. We got to find the diamonds. And meanwhile, their party's adventurers is getting like picked off one by one. Like the little nervous guy, he gets shredded up by a gorilla, like all the little like ancillary adventure team members, they get squished or yanked off into the shadows. And eventually through like some rumbling, they come into an opening. Basically it looks like a big sort of like canyon outside of the temple, and you see like all these holes in the wall. It's like the Junji Ito horror manga, like all these like gorilla shaped holes in the wall. And there's just like a little stream, and there's like all these just giant diamonds sticking out of the sand, and Tim Curry just starts like slavering, and it's like, oh, diamonds, and he starts like digging around in the dirt, scratching around, and he just like comes back like wide-eyed, I have the diamonds now, and everybody else is like, the whole time you're like getting boners for diamonds, like these spooky gorillas have been like crawling out like ants, so maybe put those down. So this is when we finally get monkey action. And then like all the mutated, like gnarled, grizzled monkeys and start climbing out of the holes like ants and start attacking what's left of the team members. And then like Dylan Walsh runs for cover, and the others are just like locking and loading. Like Tim Curry gets like ripped to shreds, and like Laura Linney and Ernie Hudson are just like back to back gun badasses, like just like circling the camera, like blasting the monkey. And it's a PG-13 movie, so there's not like a ton of violence, but you do get to see some good like gibs and like squibs go off of like these like very clearly men in like hunched over monkey outfits just getting chunks blown off of them. And then they sort of retreat further into this little opening in the back of the canyon, and they see what remains of like Bruce Campbell's character, like his like desiccated like corpse is in the hole, and Laura Linney like cries like, no, they never explain if that's just her friend or her husband, because like it seems very much like it's not just her friend, not just her colleague, but she's real broken up about it. And then the gorillas are just like piling up like zombies in World War Z. And then big damn heroes moment. Amy, who was being like left out of the exploration because she's a gorilla, she'll get in the way because she's just here to talk to other gorillas and see how they feel. And so she decides, okay, it's badass time. And so she like jumps down from the hole in the ceiling somewhere, and then she just starts knocking the fuck out of these like Morlock gorillas. She saves Dylan, who's kind of just been like a rock in a purse this whole time, just like very like encumbering to the plot, other than just being like a nanny goat to this gorilla. So like Amy's just like knocking the fuck out of the gorillas, and Laura Linney's like, you know what? I had it up to here with these diamonds and these gorillas and my dead maybe boyfriend. So she takes the really special diamond that Bruce Campbell found right before he died, breaks it out of his rocks, plugs it into the telecommunications laser, all in heavy air quotes, and she's just like, fuck you gorillas, and just does like a sweep with like the laser, because the laser is so intensified through this super special ultra diamond that it's just like slicing gorillas in half. So you just see like gorillas get like a hole blown through them, get like cut in half, guts hanging out. It's like she's just like Dynasty Warriors in this shit. It's like just cutting these gorillas in two. And then like all this activity is just like awakened the volcano underneath the mine, because of course it has. So they're beating the Haitian retreat, and the ground starts opening up, and like lava starts gushing out, and it leads to this funny bit where obviously the gorillas are trying to escape. They're like evil mutated gorillas are like trying to escape. They're all like frazzled by the activity. But like when the giant lava flume comes in, and after some of the gorillas get like covered up and washed away, they try to escape. Like it's intended to be like, oh, we need to get across to the other side, but like it just looks like a bunch of these gorillas are just like willingly flinging themselves into the lava. So you just see like some are just like spinning in place, and then you see them just like jump into the lava, and it just sort of seems like, are these gorillas stupid? It's just like, oh, here's lava, let me jump in for a swim. I think the intention is supposed to be they're trying to jump across to the other side, but it just looks like they're directly jumping into lava. It's incredible. And then it comes like the big finale escape sequence where they're running away from the lava, and the lava is sort of like upturning all the ground. So you have this, I would say, some pretty inventive like earthquake effects. Basically, Dylan Walsh, and his gorilla Amy, they be like on a portion of ground, and then it just starts lifting up and breaking away with the ground underneath. So it has this really cool, like, practical, like tectonic activity to sort of, it's to simulate like the ground breaking. I think that's one of the stronger practical effects of the movie, is like, this sort of collapsing temple earthquake sequence. So like Laura Linney and Ernie Hudson, they run ahead. Laura Linney uses her big laser cannon, chop down a tree, and gets Dylan Walsh and the gorilla across the lava flow. And they get out of the jungle just in time for all the temple to collapse into the ground, the volcano to erupt. And so there's this nice quiet moment where Dylan Walsh is like, we had a great time, didn't we, Amy? But I kind of feel like all this activity is not good for gorillas. I think you should go off and be free, return you to your home, which is kind of the whole reason that he was on this journey to begin with, to like release Amy back into the wild. And sort of like she sees like other amazing gorilla suit actors in the jungle. So she meets up with them, and they wander off into the wilderness, and they realize, oh yeah, there's still a volcano erupting. We got to get out of here. So they just wander around. I guess they find a hot air balloon somewhere. I guess they left enough behind that they could pick back up at a certain point. I don't know where they find a hot air balloon. They find it, and they get in there, and I guess they're just like, well, I guess we'll just float until we land somewhere safe. And that's kind of where the movie ends. And yeah, it was a wild ride. It wasn't as crazy as I was told it was going to be, but like, as I mentioned earlier, like there's still a lot of just like genuinely goofy and just like insane choices to be made. And plus, like, I think there's definitely a lot of charm in, the practical effects and just sort of like the concept. Like, I'm definitely a sucker for kind of like, especially recently, it was sort of like prehistoric creature feature, like B movies, like that kind of genre fare is kind of like tickling a part of my brain right now. Of course, there's definitely like some very questionable stuff in here about the country of Africa, about like the people living there. Obviously, if this is anything that entices you at all, know that going in, it's like, that's definitely a little questionable, very questionable. But in my opinion, it's not, you don't have to suffer through it too much. They're still like this, they're just crisscrossing through the jungle until they find some evil monkeys. But like, again, I was also led to believe this whole time that there's like a society of like, sentient evil monkeys in the jungle, but it's not really the case. They're kind of just like mindless, like monstrous apes. There's like some fun creature fare, and seeing them get sliced up with that fucking laser, I screamed, because it was just so fucking crazy to see, like, oh, here's a gorilla slice, and guts fly out, and then there's a hole, like a cartoon hole blown through them, and like, it's incredible. Like, I would say, if nothing else, like, check out like a highlight reel on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I saw a video in my recommendations of just like the final confrontation in the jungle with like the lasers and the lava. So check that out, because that's at least worth a watch if you don't want to sit through 2 hours of like doing walsh in the jungle. But honestly, like it's a lot of fun. I would seek it out if you like sort of goofy 90s B movies. It's a lot of fun. I watched it on YouTube for free. I mean, with this type of movie, I'm pretty sure you can find it fairly easily. You won't have to pay anything for it. So that's a plus. So I think in just summation, monkeys, cool. And there should be more movies about monkeys that are kind of like wild fare, and there's like adventure, and there's like lasers, and just like, I want more B movie monkeys and gorillas, and especially with, the resurgence of the Planet of the Apes movies. I feel like I think there's something there. I'm kind of curious if Hollywood will be as bold as to give us like monkey cinema again, but we can only hope. And if not, there's always plenty in cinema's history that we can go back and enjoy, if nothing else. So I want to thank you all for listening to this quick episode. I had a lot of fun just kind of doing like a solo ride, talking about like a bonkers movie I watched. And I do want to encourage you to hang around for the rest of the month of May, for AYCH is having MonkeyCast. If you're listening to this episode the week it comes out, then on Monday, May 20th, episode 345, Holt and Wenzel will be talking about the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy. Basically, they'll be just going through and reviewing the first 3 films in the reboot trilogy. That's Rise, Dawn, and War, the Planet of the Apes. And then on Monday, May 27th, you get episode 346, which is their review of the newest movie in the reboot series, and that's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So you have 2 weeks of monkey goodness to enjoy, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to just hang out and listen to some monkey banter. And just to wrap up here, our plugs for AYCH. If you would be so kind, be sure to like, rate, review, subscribe on wherever podcasts are found. We really appreciate it. Helps us out, keeps us visible. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can now listen to all of our previous episodes and our future episodes on YouTube. We have uploaded our entire backlog, and all of our future episodes will also be going up on YouTube in their entirety. And our YouTube page is at AYCH Podcast. We also have our Twitch VODs. We play video games sometime and then stream. So all those past videos will be on YouTube, in addition to all of our episodes of the podcast going forward. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at AYCH Podcast. You can follow us on Letterboxd. We find a whole bunch of other movies, reviews. You can find out what the lads have been watching recently. We have a lot of, great movies that come out this year, and Colt and Wenzel have been keeping on top of watching those. You can follow us on Letterboxd at AllYouCanHear. You can follow us on Blue Sky, aychpodcast.bsky.social, and you can also follow us on twitch.tv/AllYouCanHear. We do stream from time to time, and whenever we do stream, those streams will go up on YouTube, like I said, for posterity viewing. And lastly, you can follow me, Patrick, on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at John Lost His Name. Thank you so much for listening to this solo episode of the Non-Canon Files. We have a lot more monkey coming your way, and then a lot more in general. Let's just say the summer for AYCH is very stacked, and we hope you're around to listen to all of it. It's going to be a great time. So until next time, have a good day and stay tuned.